Han Ji-woo walked through the wide hallway of the Galactic Academy of Combat Sciences. His footsteps echoed against the metal floor. He was the only human in the entire school. Surrounded by tall, strong aliens from across the galaxy, Ji-woo looked small and weak. But looks can be misleading. It was his third month at the academy. Earth had only recently joined the Galactic Confederation, and humans were still seen as newcomers. Most aliens thought of humans as primitive and weak. Ji-woo had to prove them wrong. "Move aside, human," a large blue-skinned student growled, shoving past Ji-woo and knocking his books to the floor. Ji-woo took a deep breath and picked up his things. He had faced this kind of treatment since day one. Fighting back would only get him in trouble. He needed to stay at the academy to show what humans could do. The classroom door slid open with a soft hiss. Inside, 30 students from 20 different planets sat at their desks. Some had scales, others had extra limbs or eyes. All of them were bigger than Ji-woo. "You're late, Cadet Han," said Professor Taekwon, a tall Orion with gray skin and small ridges on his forehead. His eyes narrowed as Ji-woo entered. "I'm sorry, Professor. It won't happen again," Ji-woo said, bowing slightly as was custom on Earth. "Sit down." "We don't need your primitive Earth gestures here," Taekwon said coldly. Ji-woo found his seat at the back of the class. Two friendly faces nodded to him. Do-yun, a four-armed centauri, and So-yun, a green-skinned Proxima with silver hair. They were among the few who treated him with respect. "Today we continue our study of combat tactics in zero-gravity environments," Professor Taekwon began. "Most species evolved fighting on planets with gravity, but space combat requires different skills." Ji-woo listened carefully, taking notes. Combat strategy was his best subject. While aliens might be stronger, humans had thousands of years of warfare experience. Ji-woo had studied Earth's military history extensively before coming to the academy. "Cadet Han," Professor Taekwon suddenly called. "Since Earth is such a backwater planet, tell us how your primitive species would handle a zero-gravity combat situation." The class went quiet. Some students snickered. They expected Ji-woo to fail. "In zero gravity, sir, leverage becomes more important than strength," Ji-woo answered calmly. "A fighter must use their opponent's momentum against them. Earth martial arts like Aikido focus on this principle. With small movements, you can redirect an attacker's force." Professor Taekwon frowned. "Interesting theory, Cadet. But theory means nothing without physical capability. Humans simply lack the strength and speed needed for real combat." "Not all combat is about strength, Professor," Ji-woo said before he could stop himself. The room went completely silent. No one challenged Professor Taekwon. "Is that so?" Taekwon's voice turned dangerous. "Perhaps we should test your human theories in practical training next week. I'm sure the class would enjoy seeing these Earth techniques." After class, Do-yun caught up with Ji-woo in the hallway. "You shouldn't provoke him like that," Do-yun said, all four arms gesturing with worry. "Professor Taekwon really dislikes humans. He lost family in a border dispute with Earthships last year." "I didn't know," Ji-woo said. "But I can't let him spread wrong ideas about humans. We may not be the strongest, but we have our own skills." "Just be careful," Do-yun warned. "Practical training is where most human cadets wash out." Later that night, Ji-woo went to the training room when everyone else was asleep. The academy rules allowed use of facilities at all hours. Ji-woo set the gravity controls to 0 and floated up from the floor. He moved through the forms of Taekwondo, adjusting each kick and punch for the weightless environment. Then he practiced judo throws, using the walls to push off and gain momentum. Earth martial arts weren't designed for space, but they could be adapted. For 2 hours, Ji-woo trained in silence. His movements became faster and more precise each day. The aliens might not respect humans yet, but they would. The next morning, Ji-woo checked his test scores on the academy computer. He had placed first in the theoretical combat strategy exam. A small smile crossed his face. This would show them that humans belonged here. His happiness didn't last long. Professor Taekwon stormed into the common area where students were checking their results. "Cadet Han," he shouted. "My office, now." Ji-woo followed the professor down the long corridor. Other students watched with curious eyes. No one was called to Taekwon's office unless they were in serious trouble. Inside the small room, Taekwon shut the door and turned to face Jiwoo. "How did you do it?" he demanded. "Do what, sir?" Jiwoo asked, standing at attention. "Don't play innocent. This test score." Taekwon pointed to his screen. "No human should be able to score this high. You must have cheated." Jiwoo felt his face grow hot. "I did not cheat, sir. I studied hard for that test." "Impossible. Your kind simply doesn't have the mental capacity to grasp advanced combat strategy," Taekwon insisted. "I've reviewed the surveillance. I can't prove how you cheated, but I know you did. With respect, sir, humans have been fighting wars for thousands of years. We understand strategy." Taekwon's eyes narrowed. "I will be watching you very closely, Cadet Han. One mistake and I'll have you removed from this academy. Earth may have joined the Confederation, but that doesn't mean you belong here." After leaving the office, Jiwoo walked slowly back to his quarters. The small room was barely big enough for his bed and desk, but it was his own space. He sat down heavily on the bed. "Computer, call home," he said. The screen on his wall lit up, showing his father's face. Even with faster-than-light communication, there was a slight delay. "Jiwoo, how are things at the academy?" his father asked, smiling. Jiwoo forced a smile. "Good, Dad. I got the top score on my strategy test." "That's my boy. Your mother will be so proud when she gets back from her shift." Jiwoo didn't mention Professor Taekwon or the daily struggles. His parents had worked so hard to get him into the academy. They believed in the importance of humans proving themselves in the galactic community. "The practical combat demonstrations are coming up," Jiwoo said. "I've been practicing what grandfather taught me." His father's expression grew serious. "Remember what he always said, true strength isn't in the muscles. It's in the mind and spirit," Jiwoo finished. It was his grandfather's favorite saying. After the call ended, Jiwoo lay back on his bed, staring at the ceiling. The practical demonstrations were in 2 weeks. Most students would show off their species' natural combat abilities. Centauri would use their 4 arms. Orions would display their superior strength. Proxima would demonstrate their quick reflexes. What could one human show that would impress them? Jiwoo closed his eyes. He needed to be ready. Something told him Professor Taekwon would make the demonstrations very difficult for him. The professor didn't just doubt humans. He actively disliked them. "I won't let him win," Jiwoo whispered to himself. "I won't let Earth down." Outside his window, the stars of the galaxy shone brightly. Somewhere out there was Earth, counting on him to show the galaxy what humans could do. The day of the practical combat demonstration arrived faster than Jiwoo expected. For 2 weeks he had trained every night when the other cadets were asleep. His muscles ached, but his mind was clear. Today he would show what humans could do. The demonstration hall was a large circular room with high ceilings. The floor could change to different surfaces, metal, soft mats, or even simulate different gravity levels. Hundreds of seats surrounded the central area where cadets would perform. Jiwoo sat with the other students, watching as each showed their combat skills. Doyen used all 4 arms in perfect harmony, blocking attacks from 3 training robots at once. The class applauded his performance. So-hyun demonstrated the famous Proxima speed, moving so fast she seemed to blur. She disarmed a combat instructor in under 10 seconds. More applause followed. "Cadet Han," Professor Taekwon's voice called out. "Your turn." Jiwoo walked to the center of the room. His heart beat fast, but his face remained calm. He had prepared for this moment. "Since Earth has no notable combat techniques," Taekwon said loudly, "Cadet Han will attempt to defend himself against standard training protocols." The professor's words were not fair. Earth had many combat styles, but Jiwoo stayed silent. He would let his actions speak. "Begin program," Taekwon ordered the computer. 3 training robots moved toward Jiwoo. They were set to low difficulty, an insult suggesting Jiwoo couldn't handle more. The human cadet took a deep breath and remembered his training. As the first robot attacked, Jiwoo stepped aside smoothly. He used the robot's momentum to pull it forward, causing it to crash into the second robot. The third one grabbed for him, but Jiwoo ducked under its arm and struck a precise blow to its balance sensor. The class watched in surprise as Jiwoo disabled all three robots with minimal effort. He stood in the center, breathing evenly, waiting for the next challenge. Professor Taekwon frowned. Increased difficulty. Level 5. 5 was much higher than what first-year cadets usually faced. Doyeon looked worried. Soyeon leaned forward, in her seat. 5 new robots surrounded Jiwoo. These moved faster and worked together as a team. Jiwoo focused on his breathing. He remembered his grandfather's words. When outnumbered, control the space between you and your opponents. The robots attacked at once. Jiwoo jumped, higher than most expected a human could. He landed behind one robot, used it as a shield against the others, then disabled it with a precise strike. He moved constantly, never letting the robots surround him. Within 2 minutes, all 5 robots lay disabled on the floor. The room was silent. Then Doyeon started clapping, and others joined in. Professor Taekwon's face showed anger and surprise. "That's enough," he said, stopping the applause. "Return to your seat, Cadet Han." Jiwoo bowed slightly, another Earth custom that annoyed the professor, and walked back to his seat. "As you can see," Taekwon addressed the class, "even primitive techniques can work against basic training programs. However, in real combat against intelligent opponents, such simple moves would fail." Jiwoo felt his ears grow hot. The professor was dismissing his performance entirely. After all the demonstrations finished, Professor Taekwon called the class to attention. "Next week, we begin close quarters combat training. Your performance will determine your combat ranking at the academy," he announced. Dismissed. As students filed out, Soyeon caught up with Jiwoo. "That was amazing," she said, her green skin flushing slightly darker with excitement. "Where did you learn to move like that?" "My grandfather taught me," Jiwoo replied. "He studied many earth martial arts." "Well, it was impressive." Doyeon joined them, all 4 arms gesturing enthusiastically. "But be careful." The professor looked really angry. Jiwoo nodded. "I know. He wanted me to fail." The next week was tense. In every class, Professor Taekwon found reasons to criticize Jiwoo. No matter how well he performed, the professor pointed out flaws. Other students noticed the unfair treatment. Some began to respect Jiwoo for enduring it without complaint. On the day of the close quarters combat lecture, Jiwoo arrived early. He sat in the front row, determined to show he was not intimidated. Professor Taekwon entered and looked directly at Jiwoo with cold eyes. "Today we discuss the foundations of modern galactic combat," he began. "All advanced species have developed fighting techniques that use their natural advantages. Centauri use their multiple limbs. Orions use their strength. Proxima use their speed." He walked closer to Jiwoo. "Some species, however, evolved on planets where physical combat was primitive and undeveloped. They relied on weapons because their bodies were weak." Several students shifted uncomfortably. The professor was clearly talking about humans. "Sir," Jiwoo said politely, raising his hand. "May I ask a question?" Taekwon paused. "Speak, Cadet Han. Isn't it true that all combat techniques have value in the right situation? Earth developed many fighting styles over thousands of years. Some focus on using an opponent's strength against them." The room went silent. No one interrupted Professor Taekwon's lectures. "Are you suggesting," Taekwon said slowly, "that primitive, human fighting is equal to advanced galactic combat systems?" "Not equal, sir. Different. Each has its own advantages." Professor Taekwon's eyes narrowed. "Perhaps you would like to demonstrate these advantages to the class." Jiwoo knew he was walking into a trap, but he couldn't back down now. "If you think it would be educational, sir." "Indeed." Taekwon smiled without warmth. "Come to the front." Jiwoo stood and walked to the demonstration area at the front of the classroom. The other cadets watched with wide eyes. "Cadet Han believes human combat techniques have special advantages," Taekwon announced to the class. I will now demonstrate why this belief is misguided. Jiwoo stood at attention, facing the professor. He knew what was coming but remained still. In real combat, Taekwon continued, a smaller, weaker opponent has no chance against a stronger, one who strikes first. Without warning, Professor Taekwon swung his hand toward Jiwoo's face. The slap was meant to humiliate, not hurt seriously. It was a teaching moment, to show how easily a human could be overpowered. The sound of the slap echoed in the quiet classroom. 50 students from 30 different species watched, expecting to see the human cadet stumble back or fall. But Jiwoo didn't move. His face turned slightly from the impact, but his feet remained firmly planted. His eyes, which had been respectful before, changed instantly. Something ancient and dangerous flashed in them, the look of a species that had survived against all odds on a dangerous planet. Time seemed to slow down for Jiwoo. His body responded before his mind could think, drawing on thousands of hours of training and millions of years of evolution. Professor Taekwon saw the change in the human's eyes and felt for the first time a touch of uncertainty. In that moment, the entire classroom was about to learn an important lesson about humans, and one that would change the Galactic Academy forever. The classroom was completely silent. The sound of Professor Taekwon's slap still hung in the air. 50 cadets held their breath, watching the human and the professor. Jiwoo's face had turned slightly from the impact. A red mark was forming on his cheek. But his eyes had changed. They were no longer the eyes of a respectful student. They were the eyes of a predator. What happened next occurred so fast that many students couldn't follow it. Their brains were still processing the slap when Jiwoo moved. In one fluid motion, Jiwoo's right hand came up and deflected the professor's arm away. At the same time, his left foot stepped forward and to the side. His body turned, lowering his center of gravity. His left hand grabbed the professor's wrist while his right palm struck the professor's chest. The movement looked simple, almost gentle, but it used all of the professor's momentum and weight against him. The laws of physics did the rest. Professor Taekwon's feet left the ground. His body rotated in the air. Then, with a loud thud, he landed flat on his back on the classroom floor. The entire sequence took less than 1 second. For 3 heartbeats, no one moved, no one spoke, no one even breathed. The cadets stared with wide eyes and open mouths. Some had enhanced vision that could track fast movements, but even they had barely seen what happened. Professor Taekwon lay on his back, gasping for air. The impact had knocked the wind out of him. His eyes were wide with shock and confusion. He had never been taken down so quickly, not even by other Orions. Jiwoo stood in a balanced stance, his breathing calm. His face showed no anger, no triumph, no emotion at all. He had responded with the training that was now part of his muscle memory. Earth martial arts focused on using an opponent's energy against them. The harder someone attacked, the harder they fell. So-hyun was the first to break the silence. "By the stars," she whispered. That broke the spell. The classroom erupted in shocked voices. Some students stood up to see better. Others recorded the scene with their devices. A few rushed forward to help the professor. He moved so fast. "Did you see that?" The human took down Professor Taekwon. Doyeon pushed through the crowd and reached Jiwoo. "Are you okay?" he asked, his forearms hovering nervously. Jiwoo blinked, coming back to himself. Yes, I'm fine." "What did you do to him?" another cadet asked with a mixture of fear and admiration. "It's called Aikido," Jiwoo explained quietly. "It uses the attacker's own force against them." The professor struck with anger. "I just redirected his energy." Professor Taekwon was sitting up now, his gray face flushed with a darker color. 2 Orion cadets helped him to his feet. He swayed slightly, still dazed from the fall. "You attacked an instructor," he said, his voice hoarse. "This is grounds for immediate expulsion." "With respect, sir," Jiwoo replied calmly. "You attacked first. I defended myself using minimum force. The security cameras recorded everything." The professor looked around the room. Every student had seen what happened. Many had recorded it. He had struck first. breaking academy rules about instructor conduct. Worse, he had been defeated by a human cadet in front of witnesses. Class dismissed, he growled, straightening his uniform. Cadet Han, report to the commandant's office immediately. As the cadets filed out of the room, they gave Jiwoo wide-eyed looks. Some seemed afraid, others impressed. News would spread quickly through the academy. By dinner time, everyone would know that a human cadet had taken down an Orion combat instructor with a single move. Jiwoo walked slowly toward the commandant's office. His cheek still stung from the slap, but his mind was clear. He had not wanted this confrontation. He had tried to be respectful, but when attacked, he had responded as he was trained to do. The commandant's office was at the top of the academy's central tower. Commandant Junha was a tall, thin alien from the Andromeda Galaxy. His species was known for their strict fairness and logic. Jiwoo hoped this would help his case. Enter, a calm voice said when Jiwoo knocked on the door. Inside, Jiwoo found not only the commandant but also 3 senior academy officials. They sat behind a long desk, their faces serious. A large screen on the wall showed the classroom scene from multiple angles. Cadet Han, Commandant Junha said. We have reviewed the security footage of the incident between you and Professor Taekwon. Jiwoo stood at attention. Yes, sir. The professor struck you without provocation during a class discussion. You responded with a defensive technique that neutralized the threat without causing serious injury. Is that correct? Yes, sir. One of the other officials leaned forward. The technique you used. We have never seen it before. What do you call it? It comes from a Japanese earth martial art called Aikido, sir. It focuses on using an opponent's energy against them, while protecting both people from serious harm. The officials exchanged looks. The third one, a female with blue skin, spoke. Next. Cadet Han, how did you move so quickly? Our analysis shows your reaction time was faster than most enhanced species. Jiwoo thought carefully before answering. Humans evolved as pursuit predators, ma'am. We don't have the strongest muscles or the sharpest claws, but we have very fast reflexes when threatened. Earth gravity is also higher than many Confederation worlds, which gives us certain advantages in strength-to-weight ratio. The commandant nodded slowly. I see. And this Aikido, it is common on Earth? It's one of many martial arts developed over thousands of years, sir. Different regions of Earth created different fighting styles based on their needs and philosophies. The officials talked quietly among themselves. Jiwoo waited, standing straight, his hands at his sides. His future at the academy hung in the balance. Finally, Commandant Junha turned back to him. Cadet Han, the academy does not tolerate violence between instructors and students. However, in this case, the evidence clearly shows you acted in self-defense after being attacked. You will not be punished. Relief washed over Jiwoo, but he kept his face neutral. Thank you, sir. Furthermore, the commandant continued, Professor Taekwon will face disciplinary action for his unprofessional conduct. The female official added, We are also interested in learning more about these human martial arts. The Confederation Combat Division has requested information about earth fighting techniques that might be useful in our training programs. Jiwoo couldn't hide his surprise. They want to learn from humans? Indeed, the commandant said. Your demonstration today has raised interesting questions about human capabilities that we previously overlooked. The Combat Division is sending representatives next week to observe and record human fighting techniques. You will assist them. Yes, sir. I would be honored. The commandant dismissed him. As Jiwoo left the office, his mind raced. This was not what he had expected. He had thought he might be expelled. Instead, the highest levels of the Confederation, military, were suddenly interested in human fighting styles. When he returned to the student quarters, he found Doyun and Sohyun waiting anxiously. What happened? Doyun asked, all forearms gesturing. Are you expelled? No, Jiwoo said, still processing everything. The commandant reviewed the footage. Professor Taekwon is being disciplined, not me. Sohyun's eyes widened. Really? That's amazing. But what about what you did? That move was incredible. They want to learn more about it, Jiwoo said. The Confederation Combat Division is sending people to study human martial arts next week. You're famous now, Doyen said. Everyone is talking about how the human cadet flattened Professor Taekwon before anyone could blink. Jiwoo sat down heavily on a bench. I didn't want this attention. I just wanted to study and prove humans belong here. Well, Soyun said with a smile, I think you definitely proved that today. As they talked, Jiwoo's communicator beeped with a message. It was from his father back on Earth. News traveled fast, even across the galaxy. The message was simple. Your grandfather would be proud. Jiwoo smiled for the first time that day. Maybe things were about to change for humans in the Galactic Confederation, and it all started with a slap and a 1-second response that no one saw coming. 3 days after the incident, Jiwoo walked into the dining hall for breakfast. The moment he entered, conversation stopped. All eyes turned to him. Then, something unexpected happened. Several cadets nodded respectfully. A few even smiled. Jiwoo got his food and looked for an empty table. Before he could sit alone as usual, a voice called out, Jiwoo, over here. It was Min Hwan, a tall cadet with orange skin. He had never spoken to Jiwoo before. Next to him sat Jin Young, whose species had 4 eyes and metallic blue hair. Hesitantly, Jiwoo walked over and sat down. That was amazing what you did to Professor Taekwon, Min Hwan said, eyes bright with excitement. I've never seen anyone move that fast. Thanks, Jiwoo said quietly. He didn't want to make a big deal about it. Is it true that all humans can fight like that? Jin Young asked, all 4 eyes blinking with curiosity. No, not all of us. It takes years of training, Jiwoo explained. My grandfather taught me since I was very young. More cadets joined their table, asking questions about Earth and human fighting styles. For the first time since arriving at the academy, Jiwoo felt like he belonged. The other students were treating him with interest and respect, not dismissal. Later that day, Jiwoo received a message on his tablet. It was from the academy's medical department requesting his presence. Confused, he headed there after his classes. In the medical center, he found a team of scientists waiting for him. Their leader, Dr. Sunwoo, was a small, gray alien with large eyes. Ah, Cadet Han, the doctor said. Thank you for coming. We've been authorized to conduct a study on human physiology, with a focus on your reaction speeds and muscle coordination. Would you mind? I guess not, Jiwoo said, surprised by the request. For the next 2 hours, the scientists ran various tests. They measured how quickly Jiwoo could react to lights and sounds. They scanned his muscles and nervous system while he performed basic movements. They asked him to demonstrate simple fighting stances and recorded everything. Fascinating, Doctor, Sunwoo said as they reviewed the results. Human reaction time is remarkably fast for an unmodified species, and your muscle control is exceptional. What does this mean? Jiwoo asked. The doctor looked at him thoughtfully. It means we may have underestimated humans. Your species lacks the obvious advantages of many Confederation races, but you have your own unique strengths, speed, adaptability, and excellent coordination between mind and body. As Jiwoo left the medical center, he noticed more scientists arriving. They carried equipment marked with the Confederation Military Research Division logo. Word was spreading beyond the academy. That evening, Jiwoo received another surprise. A message from Professor Taekwon, requesting a private meeting the next morning. Jiwoo felt nervous about facing the professor again, but he couldn't refuse. The professor's office was small and neat. Models of famous Confederation warships lined the shelves. Taekwon sat behind his desk, his face unreadable. Sit down, Cadet Han, he said, his voice neutral. Jiwoo sat stiffly, ready for anything. The Commandant has placed me on probation, Taekwon said without emotion. My conduct was unprofessional and violated academy rules. I'm sorry to hear that, sir, Jiwoo said carefully. The professor's eyes narrowed slightly. Are you? I struck you without cause. What happened was unfortunate, but I don't want anyone's career to be damaged. Taekwon studied him for a long moment. You are not what I expected, Cadet Han. I believed humans were primitive and simple. I was wrong, and my error was costly. The professor stood and walked to the window. I lost family in the border conflict with Earth ships last year. It colored my view of all humans. That was unfair to you. Jiwoo was surprised by this admission. I understand holding a grudge, sir. Humans do it too. Taekwon turned back to face him. The technique you used, it was efficient and controlled. You could have hurt me badly, but you chose not to. That's the philosophy behind Aikido, Jiwoo explained. It's about protection, not destruction. The goal is to neutralize a threat without causing unnecessary harm. Interesting, the professor said thoughtfully. Very different from Orion combat training, which focuses on overwhelming force. There was a long silence. Then Taekwon straightened his uniform. I have been instructed to observe the demonstrations you will give to the Confederation representatives next week. It seems I have much to learn about human combat techniques. Jiwoo left the meeting feeling confused but hopeful. Professor Taekwon hadn't apologized directly, but he had acknowledged his mistake. For a proud Orion, that was significant. The news about Jiwoo's technique spread quickly beyond the academy walls. Security footage of the incident had been leaked to the galactic network. Within days, billions of beings across the Confederation had seen the human cadets' lightning-fast response. Public reaction was mixed. Some saw it as proof that humans were dangerous and unpredictable. Others were impressed by the efficiency and control Jiwoo had shown. Military officials from dozens of species expressed interest in learning more about human martial arts. 6 days after the incident, a large shuttle landed at the academy. It carried high-ranking officers from the Yair Confederation Combat Division. Their arrival caused excitement among the cadets. The combat division rarely sent senior personnel to the academy. Jiwoo was called to the main training hall. When he arrived, he found the room had been transformed. Recording equipment surrounded the central mat. In the viewing area sat 20 senior officers from different species. Commandant Junha stood with them, looking serious. Cadet Han, the commandant said, these officers have come to observe and document human martial arts techniques. You will demonstrate various forms and explain their principles. Cadets Do-yoon and So-yoon will assist you. Jiwoo was surprised to see his friends enter the room looking nervous but excited. Begin when ready, the commandant said. Taking a deep breath, Jiwoo stepped onto the mat. He bowed, an Earth tradition that now felt important to share. Earth developed many fighting styles over thousands of years, he began. Each region created techniques based on their needs and philosophy. Today, I will demonstrate some basic forms from several styles. For the next 2 hours, Jiwoo showed the officers how humans fought. He demonstrated taekwondo kicks, karate strikes, judo throws, and aikido deflections. He explained the principles behind each style and how they could be adapted for different environments, including zero gravity. Do-yoon and So-hyun helped by attacking him in various ways, allowing Jiwoo to show how the techniques worked against different body types. The officers watched intently, asking questions and taking notes. Most impressive, said General Minju, the head of the delegation. These techniques use leverage and timing rather than raw strength. Very efficient for a species without natural advantages. Humans had to be efficient, ma'am, Jiwoo explained. On Earth, we weren't the strongest or fastest animals. We survived by being smart and adaptable. A valuable trait in galactic warfare as well, the general noted. She turned to her colleagues. I believe the combat division should establish a formal exchange program with Earth's military academies. These techniques could be useful for many of our smaller species. The other officers nodded in agreement. One of them, an admiral with silver skin, looked at Jiwoo. Young man, you have done your planet a great service today. This may be the beginning of true integration between humans and the Confederation. As the officers filed out, Professor Taekwon approached Jiwoo. His face was thoughtful. Your demonstration was educational, Cadet Han. Perhaps humans have more to offer the Confederation than I realized. Coming from Professor Taekwon, this was high praise indeed. Jiwoo smiled. Thank you, sir. We all have something to learn from each other. That night, Jiwoo sent a message home to his parents and grandfather. He told them about the demonstration and the Confederation's new interest in human martial arts. He ended with a simple statement. Things are changing here. And it all started with a slap. 6 months had passed since the day Professor Taekwon slapped Jiwoo. The Galactic Academy of Combat Sciences looked the same from the outside, but inside, much had changed. Jiwoo walked down the main hallway, no longer alone. 4 other human cadets walked with him. After news spread about what happened, more humans had applied to the academy. They were accepted with new interest from the Confederation. "Jiwoo, wait up," called a familiar voice. Jiwoo turned to see Doyen hurrying toward him, all 4 arms carrying training equipment. "We're going to be late for combat integration class," Doyen said. "And you know how Professor Myung gets when people are late." I know, Jiwoo laughed, "and let me help you with that." He took some of the equipment from his friend. Their friendship had grown stronger over the past months. Doyen had been one of the first cadets to sign up for the new human martial arts training program. That program was now one of the most popular at the academy. Twice a week, Jiwoo taught basic earth fighting techniques to cadets from all species. The class had started small but now had over 100 students. They arrived at the training hall just in time. Professor Myung, who had replaced Taekwon as the main combat instructor, nodded to them as they entered. She was from a cat-like species known for their grace and speed. "Today we continue our study of integrated combat styles," she announced. "We will practice combining Centauri grappling techniques with human judo throws." The class paired up with students from different species working together. This was new. Before Jiwoo's incident, combat classes had focused on each species using their own natural advantages. Now the academy encouraged learning from all traditions. After class, Jiwoo had a special appointment. He headed to the small training room at the back of the academy. Inside waiting for him was Professor Taekwon. "Good afternoon, Cadet Han," the professor said formally. "Good afternoon, Professor," Jiwoo replied. "Ready to continue where we left off?" Taekwon nodded. For the past 3 months, Jiwoo had been teaching the professor Aikido in private sessions. It had started as part of Taekwon's disciplinary program, but had continued by mutual agreement. "I have been practicing the wrist control technique. You showed me," Taekwon said, demonstrating the move. "Good," Jiwoo said. "But remember, it's not about strength. It's about position and leverage." He adjusted the professor's grip slightly. "Like this, now try again." For an hour they worked together. The professor was a serious student, setting aside his former prejudice to learn. He no longer saw human techniques as primitive. He saw their value. "You know," Taekwon said as they finished, "I never properly apologized for what happened." Jiwoo looked up in surprise. The professor had never mentioned the slap directly. It was unprofessional and wrong. Taekwon continued. "My personal feelings about humans clouded my judgment as an instructor." "Thank you, Professor," Jiwoo said simply. "That means a lot." Taekwon nodded once. "The Confederation has existed for thousands of years. In that time, we've encountered many new species. But I think we had become arrogant. We judged others by our own standards. Humans have done the same thing throughout our history," Jiwoo admitted. "It's a hard habit to break." "Indeed. But perhaps that is why we all need to learn from each other." Later that day, Jiwoo attended a special ceremony in the academy's main hall. The commandant had called all cadets and instructors together for an important announcement. "Today marks a historic moment for the academy and the Confederation," Commandant Yunya said from the stage. "I am pleased to announce the official launch of the Earth Confederation Exchange Program." Applause filled the room. On stage behind the commandant stood several human officials in Earth military uniforms. They had arrived the day before on the first direct diplomatic shuttle from Earth. This program will bring human combat instructors to the academy and send our cadets to Earth to learn. It is the first step in true military integration between Earth and the Confederation, the commandant continued. This initiative began 6 months ago, when a single incident opened our eyes. to capabilities we had overlooked. It reminded us that strength comes in many forms, and that we must never judge a species by our preconceptions. Jiwoo felt many eyes turn toward him. His face grew warm, but he stood tall. He had not asked for this attention, but he was proud of what had come from it. After the ceremony, one of the human officials approached Jiwoo. She was an older woman with short gray hair and the rank of general on her uniform. "Cadet Han," she said, "I'm General Park from Earth Defense Force. Your actions have opened many doors for humanity in the Confederation." "I was just defending myself, ma'am," Jiwoo said. "Sometimes that's all it takes to change minds," she replied, with a smile. "The Confederation has already begun incorporating human martial arts into their training programs, and now they're reassessing humans for special operations roles they previously thought we couldn't handle." "Really?" Jiwoo asked, surprised. "Yes. They've discovered that our reaction speed and adaptability make us excellent pilots and infiltration specialists, things they never considered before." That evening, Jiwoo received a call from home. His grandfather's face appeared on the screen, older but with bright, proud eyes. "Grandson," the old man said, his voice crackling slightly over the connection, "I heard about the exchange program. Your mother says it was all because of you." "Not really, grandfather," Jiwoo said modestly. "I just used what you taught me." "And that is exactly why I taught you," his grandfather replied. "Not to fight, but to show others that appearances can be deceiving. The smallest stream can carve through the hardest mountain given time." They talked for a while about family news and academy life. Before ending the call, his grandfather asked one more question. "This professor who struck you, what happened to him?" "Professor Taekwon?" Jiwoo smiled. "He's learning Aikido now, and doing quite well." The old man laughed loudly. "That is the true victory. Not defeating your enemy but turning him into a student." After the call ended, Jiwoo looked out his window at the stars. Somewhere among them was Earth, no longer seen as a backwater planet, but as a valued member of the Confederation. The change had begun with a single moment, a reflex action that took less than a second. The next morning, Jiwoo entered the combat training hall for a special demonstration. A group of new cadets from 15 different species, including 5 humans, waited nervously. They had just arrived at the academy and would be the first class to go through the new integrated combat program. Commandant Junha nodded to Jiwoo. "Cadet Han will be your guide today. He is in his second year and has unique insight into our training methods." Jiwoo stepped forward, looking at the diverse group before him. "Welcome to the Galactic Academy of Combat Sciences," he began. "My name is Han Jiwoo. When I first came here, I was the only human cadet. I faced many challenges and prejudices." He looked around the room, meeting the eyes of each new cadet. "But what I learned is that every species has something valuable to teach and something important to learn. In this academy, we no longer train separately. We train together, sharing our strengths and helping each other overcome our weaknesses." One of the new human cadets raised a hand. "Is it true you took down an Orion professor with one move?" Jiwoo smiled. "That story has grown in the telling. What really happened was a lesson for all of us about assumptions and respect, and that's what you'll learn here too." As he began showing the new cadets around the academy, Jiwoo felt a sense of pride. The galaxy was changing, little by little, and it had started with a single slap and a response faster than anyone could blink.